and welcome to Business Daily. I'm Lee-Jun in Seoul. Let's first get started with a glimpse of today's highlights. The Bank of Korea raises its growth forecast for this year while keeping its benchmark interest rate steady at 1.25%. The way people get their daily dose of news, watch movies, and listen to music have all changed from the past with the emergence of new media platforms. These stories and more coming right up. But first, Korea's equity market is on fire once again after U.S. Fed Chair Janet Yellen's congressional testimony spurred risk appetites among global investors. For more, we're now joined by Eunice Kim on the phone. So Eunice, it was another record-setting day for the Korean bourse on this Thursday.
It was a sharp turnaround from yesterday's profit-taking, Ji-yoon. The Kospi out the gates hit a fresh record high, even surpassing the 2420 mark at one point, a mere 10 days after eclipsing the 2400 mark for the first time. As you see there at the closing bell, the benchmark index closed 0.74% higher at 2,409.49, supplanting Tuesday's record. The tech-heavy Kosdaq also ended up 0.24% at 652.69. The Korean won strengthened against the greenback at 1,136.31 to the dollar. Now, some notable movements on the main bourse. LG Chem, buoyed by expectations for a Q2 earnings surprise, was pushing toward a stellar 5% gain in afternoon trading. Hyundai Motor, POSCO, Naver, Samsung C&T, Samsung Life Insurance, just a few stocks that were all on a winning streak today. Market bellwether, Samsung Electronics, still yet a hot stock. It continued its now 4-day record-setting run, gaining 1.36% to close at 2.528 million won. SK Hynix ended up 2.47%, eclipsing the 70,000 won mark for the first time.
Well, safe to say the rally was driven by foreign investors then, who have been investing heavily in Korean equities.
That's right, lured in by strong corporate earnings and an optimistic outlook on Korean companies. Also, earlier today, the Bank of Korea raising its outlook for the economy by 0.2 percentage points to 2.8%. But, even before today's rally, data from the Korea Exchange had showed foreign ownership of domestic equities had reached another peak. Koscom said foreign-owned stocks on the Kospi and Kosdaq had amounted to an equivalent of $528 billion as of Tuesday. That's accounting for more than 34% of the total market cap of the two bourses. Now, today's bullishness was seen not only on Korean markets, but really worldwide, as Fed Chair Janet Yellen's House testimony on Wednesday signaled there will be no rush to raise interest rates. She speaks before a Senate committee later today in Washington. This has been Eunice Kim for Business Daily.
The Korean economy has been growing steadily in the first half of this year, and accordingly, the central bank today has raised its growth projection for this year to 2.8% on the back of stronger exports. Oh Soo-young reports.
The Korean economy is set to grow by 2.8% this year. The Bank of Korea on Thursday raised its growth estimate by 0.2 percentage points, placing it in line with analyst forecasts. This is the second time this year that the central bank has bumped up its projection, as the country's economy grew at a better-than-expected pace of 1.1% in the first quarter of this year, due to a strong surge of exports and investment. However, growth estimates for next year errs on the side of caution at 2.9%, as the bank's policymakers remain guarded on the health of the domestic economy.
Consumption has remained weak and the level of household debt is a major matter of concern. Expansionary fiscal policies such as a supplementary budget for job creation are needed to boost the domestic economy. The projection may have been revised to 2.8%, but that only matches last year's growth rate.
While the economy is expected to continue down the road to recovery, the central bank has decided to maintain its wait-and-see approach before weaning the nation off the record low interest rate. At its July policy meeting Thursday, the Bank of Korea held its benchmark rate at a record low of 1.25% for the 13th month in a row.
Due to domestic and global uncertainties, there's a need to observe future developments. While household debt has been falling in recent months, it remains high and under growing demand. We need to wait and see how the government plans to handle the situation.
Korea's household debt stands at a record level of over $1.1 trillion. The growing burden of mortgage payments could destabilise an economy that's still struggling with low consumption, relatively high unemployment and income polarisation. Down the line, most experts agree that an eventual rate hike is inevitable. The US Federal Reserve last month raised its rates by 25 basis points, further pressuring the Bank of Korea to follow suit to keep the country attractive for foreign investment and to prevent a possible capital outflow. Oh Seung, Business Daily.
Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon is looking to save Korea's floundering shipyards, which have suffered heavy losses amid an industry-wide slump. During a state agenda meeting on Thursday, he said the government will extend its financial aid measures for 1 more year to protect the job security of shipyard workers. He noted that shipbuilders contribute greatly to the regional economy down in the provinces, and their struggles have a direct impact on local communities. Faced with oversaturation in the global market, Hyundai Heavy Industries has announced the closure of its yard in the city of Kunsan in Jeollabuk-do province. U.S. Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen has signaled that the Fed will start reducing its giant bond holdings this year. Testifying before a House committee on Wednesday, Yellen said the Fed is preparing to gradually scale down its $4.5 trillion worth of holdings of mortgage-backed securities and U.S. Treasury bonds. She didn't give an exact time frame, but stressed the necessity of doing it, quote-unquote, relatively soon, sometime within this year. Regarding interest rates, Yellen said, judging by the current economic conditions in the U.S., the Fed is likely to keep raising them gradually. And to give us more insight on where the Bank of Korea may be headed from here on out in regards to its monetary policy, Professor Kim Se-won from Ewha Women's University joins us in the studio today. So good to see you.
Pleasure to be here.
So the Bank of Korea froze its key interest rate today at a record low of 1.25% for 13 consecutive months, and it also adjusted its growth forecast. So what's the reason behind this decision?
The big reason why Bank of Korea is not increasing interest rate is because they do not want to put a damper on the way to recovering economy. Actually, the ultimate goal of Bank of Korea is stabilizing inflation, but it is not a largest concern as of now because inflation is staying around 0% on an annual basis. Actually, the overall picture of economic recovery is really encouraging. The first quarter's economic growth was 2.9%, and export is increasing quickly. So given this situation, when supplementary budget is added, that's going to be over 3% economic growth rate.
Now, recently, we have seen the United States kind of lead a shift in tight money policy, in which we're seeing the ECB and the BOJ appearing to follow suit, I guess. Is this right?
Right. U.S. Fed has begun its interest rate hikes from December of 2015. And after that, from actually last month, the chairman of European Central Bank, Mr. Draghi, gave a hint of getting out of quantitative easing. However, another major central bank of Japan is still strongly pursuing quantitative easing with negative 0.1% of the interest rate. So given this complicated situation, it is important to Bank of Korea to keep step with major banks' interest rate to control inflows and outflows of the funds from Korean financial market.
Now, going along with that, the BOK did hint at a possible rate hike, citing improvements in the local economic growth and all that. But, I mean, if it occurs, when do you see this happening?
Well, actually, with even higher interest rate from United States, money is not getting out of Korean financial market, mainly due to stock market booms. And so we can expect that in the short run, as long as stock market is active, we don't expect there's abrupt and massive outflow of funds from Korean financial market. Another reason why Bank of Korea is postponing interest rate hike is if they increase interest rate today, that's going to neutralize the effects of the supplementary budget. So I think if they really consider interest rate hikes, that is going to be after another interest rate hikes of the U.S. Federal Reserve around the end of this year.
Now, you just mentioned the extra budget bill, which is still stuck in limbo in the National Assembly. So, I mean, what kind of impact would the failure to pass this extra budget bill have on Korea's economic growth?
Well, all revised economic growth forecasts are pointing that higher numbers, up to 3%. As we have seen from the report, Bank of Korea today increased economic growth forecast up to 2.8% from previous 2.6%. So in these circumstances, Bank of Korea, for Bank of Korea, it is very important to adjust the money supply in difficult situations.
And the FMC's two-day July policy meeting is set to kick off on July 25th. So what can we expect from that meeting?
Well, also, as we have seen from the report, Janet Yellen, the chairwoman of Federal Reserve, had a testimony over monetary policy on Congress. And she used the word gradual interest rate increase over 3 times. So that is really important signal to the market. So that means since U.S. inflation rate is extremely low, like 1.4%, much lower than that of the 2% of the inflation target, so market's expectation is there won't be interest rate increase until the end of this year.
A lot to keep our eyes on in the next few weeks and even months, right?
Exactly.
Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you very much.
The United States has formally notified Korea that it wants to begin the amendment process in their bilateral free trade agreement. Washington trade officials may have bowed to pressure from U.S. President Donald Trump, who has called for either a revision or a termination of the FTA. Yoo Jun-hee has this report.
U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer sent a letter on Wednesday to Seoul's Trade Minister Ju Hyung-hwan asking to convene the Joint Committee of the South Korea-U.S. FTA. Lighthizer proposed that the meeting take place in Washington next month to discuss the removal of barriers on U.S. goods and amendments to the current deal as they see necessary. The U.S. official, while underscoring South Korea's status as an important U.S. ally and key trading partner, said there was a need to ensure fair and balanced trade, citing the significant trade imbalance. The notification from the U.S. Trade Office was a long-expected move, given that President Trump has vowed to either revise or scrap the deal. During a summit with President Moon 2 weeks ago, President Trump jumped the gun, claiming the two countries were already renegotiating the FTA, one he has described as a horrible and job-killing deal. However, South Korean officials countered by saying the FTA has been mutually beneficial since it came into effect in 2012. Experts also point out, although the U.S. has a deficit with South Korea in the trade of goods, it has enjoyed sizable surpluses in the services sector under the deal. The terms of the agreement stipulate that if one side officially requests the convening of the joint FTA committee, the other party must respond within 30 days. The Trump administration must also inform Congress 90 days before the start of any renegotiations. This time frame, however, does not apply to the proposed meeting of the joint FTA committee, as it will involve only preliminary discussions rather than actual negotiations to change the terms of the deal. Yoo Jun-hee, Business Daily.
And responding to the notification, Seoul's Trade Ministry says it will coordinate with the U.S. to arrange details on the timing and agenda of the special joint committee. The ministry highlighted the phrase follow-up negotiations that the U.S. trade officials used in their letter and saying the meeting does not mean the two countries are renegotiating the deal. It added that under the terms of the FTA, a mutual agreement is needed for any changes to be applied. The state-run Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power Corporation is scheduled to hold a board meeting to review its decision to cease all building work on 2 new nuclear reactors. The meeting had been scheduled for 3 p.m. Korea time, but now facing delays after board members were barred from entering the venue in Gyeongju by labor union protesters. The board is likely to vote to permanently halt the construction of the Shingori 5 and 6 reactors, which are about 30% complete. Last month, the government ordered a suspension of the reactors located in the southeastern city of Ulsan due to mounting safety concerns. The Moon Jae-in administration has long promised to phase out nuclear power in favor of cleaner, renewable sources. As a result of China's THAAD retaliation, tourism from China has plunged, and duty-free stores are bearing the brunt of the impact. Some are even calling to delay the opening of new duty-free shops. Our Lee Ju-young has more.
Compare the sights from 1 year ago to now. This shop used to be bustling with foreigners looking to buy Korean cosmetics, but if you take a walk through the same store today, it's a vastly different picture. Just a year after this shop's grand opening, sales have already taken a turn for the worst.
We enjoyed a lot of success when we first opened, but have been struggling since the THAAD retaliations began.
The Chinese government's THAAD retaliation has the Korean duty-free industry reeling in its aftermath. According to the Korea Tourism Organization, the number of Chinese tourists to Korea rose every month in the first 5 months of 2016, but following China's travel ban in March of this year, Chinese tourists have plummeted drastically. In fact, Chinese tourism was still going strong in January and February, just prior to the ban. What's more, the duty-free market, which has seen steady annual growth, is now expected to shrink on year for the first time ever. With snowballing losses, shops that can't afford to operate will have to return their operating license, and 3 new duty-free businesses that were set to open have asked to delay their openings. Some are looking abroad at foreign markets in hopes of finding a way to boost sluggish sales.
The domestic duty-free industry is highly competitive and accounts for 17% of global duty-free sales. It's more than enough to tap into the global market.
As duty-free shops continue to struggle, an increasing number of shop owners are urging the government to be more flexible with rent and operating fees. Lee Ju-young, Business Daily.
K-Bank, Korea's first internet-only bank, launched just over 100 days ago to resounding success. Now, industry observers are curious as to how Kakao Bank, Korea's second online exclusive lender, will distinguish itself when it launches later this month. Our Elia Kim has the story.
Kakao Bank's main appeal is that all transactions will be conducted via a mobile app, one that is as easy to use as its distant cousin, Kakao Talk, a popular messaging app. Another major selling point is the ease of creating new bank accounts. They can be opened in just 7 minutes, much faster than its competitor K-Bank.
We haven't yet seen a completely mobile business. Everything here can be done on a smartphone. It's convenient and intuitive, while providing a high level of service. It only takes a short time to get yourself started.
The existing authentication methods for non-face-to-face transactions, which have often frustrated users, have been replaced with a much simpler process that only requires a mobile phone and an ID card. Another area where Kakao Bank stands out is overseas remittances. Not only is it easy to use, but it also charges low service fees, around just 10% of the usual rate. Rent and mortgage loan services will also be offered by the bank later this year.
Only debit cards will be available for now, but we hope to enter the credit card business next year after regulatory approval.
Kakao Bank's impact on the market will likely be magnified, far beyond the effects of its rival K-Bank, by its integration with Kakao Talk, the most widely used messaging app in Korea. As a result of these trends, traditional banks are also strengthening their online presence, with Uri Bank creating a digital strategy department, while Shinhan Holdings has hired a new executive to oversee its digital banking business. Elliot Kim, Business Daily.
People heading to movie theaters to catch a film or listening to music on CDs are quickly becoming a thing of the past. The way people consume media content is now changing, and there are also many new ways to distribute various content aside from conventional platforms. From broadcasting to films, let's find out more about the world of emerging contents and platforms that are breaking new ground.
The $50 million blockbuster film Okja was unveiled on both Netflix and theaters nationwide in Korea.
I hope Okja can play a pivotal role in changing conventional regulations and rules.
And one of K-pop's most influential artists, G-Dragon, released his new album on USB drives. These are some of the innovative, outside-the-box attempts that have been made recently to distribute media content. Platforms create the environment which dictates how media content and services are created. The new platforms that have been emerging, however, are breaking the conventional formula. Broadcasting is already ahead of the game when it comes to utilizing new platforms, since many viewers no longer sit in front of a television. Thanks to an explosive growth of mobile TV, you can now watch your favorite programs from any location.
I don't watch television these days. There's so much mobile content, and I enjoy watching web dramas on my smartphone.
There are a lot of contents available on mobile phones, so I use them a lot.
This mobile media production firm is growing rapidly with popular content aimed at young people. The company started off by producing a web drama series. It gets up to 1.1 million views per show and is leading the country's mobile media market.
It's a new era where anyone can run a broadcast on YouTube or Facebook and have their own channels, so I thought it would be a good idea to shift away from television in my content business.
Mobile platforms incur lower production costs and pose less financial risks compared to TV broadcasting that usually requires a considerable amount of investment. Mobile platforms have a big advantage in communicating with viewers. Production companies can better determine their content direction by reflecting online feedback such as comments and ratings.
I think the biggest advantage of making web dramas compared to the ones on TV is that you can immediately reflect the young audience's needs by analyzing trends and keywords online. Our crew is able to communicate with viewers through online comments, and it's great to get some immediate feedback.
We began by earning revenues from advertisements on mobile contents. Now we plan to release books, comics, novels, essays, and products based on our original web contents. We also want to break into the TV media market in the future.
With more people watching mobile contents instead of television, popular online dramas are now being recreated and aired on television. Mobile platforms are now being used by talent agencies as well. Companies are hiring producers from major television networks to run their own broadcast channels and promote their artists.
A system that allows easy content production enables the creation of customized contents for viewers. This results in the large inflow of capital for business owners, which can be also utilized to give viewers more variety in their choice of contents.
Emerging platforms are now influencing journalism as well. This media company specializing in startups has 5 reporters in total, all in charge of news coverage, the production of video contents, and distribution. Compared to other media outlets, this company circulates its stories through major web portals and social media.
In order to write quality articles, we decided to remove existing web pages and instead we began targeting our subscribers on major web portals and social media.
This new media outlet has attracted 35,000 subscribers already. Instead of writing articles for commercial or promotional purpose, most of their profits come from its in-house advertisements and video contents. Subscribers can enjoy a variety of contents in each article that come with infographics or video clips. To stand out amid the endless stream of online contents, their goal is to become a journalism platform that emphasizes two-way communication with its subscribers.
Beyond writing articles on subjects of personal interest on our website, I also want to create a web community where people can share articles with one another and even write and submit their own.
New platforms will continue to grow and be recognized through competition. However, it remains to be seen how the regulatory imbalance between existing platforms, which face more restrictions, and new platforms, which often lie in the gray area, will be resolved.
New online platforms are expected to become the growth engine of the future media industry with diverse and powerful contents.
And that wraps it up for today, but we'll be back tomorrow with more of the day's top business stories, so don't forget to check back with us then. Thanks for watching and see you soon.